One of the rationales that a lot of Nazis was in order to Nazify Ukraine and to identify himself with this idea that it was perpetrating aggressive act. This is classic fascism. Involves cloaking your enemy, what you yourself are. So Putin is clearly doing this, and you, by declassification of means that he's going to go into Ukraine, he's going to take the democratic ideology that Ukraine has embraced since the Maidan Revolution in 2014. He's going to move it from institutions and schools and politics. He's going to place the leaders on trial and show trials reminiscent of Nuremberg, execute or imprison and replace them with Russian fascist ideals, and extinguish completely Ukrainian democratic identity and Ukrainian identity. Full stop. So what democracies that are standing around the planet do in the face of this absence of military intervention? Now, we see that economic sanctions that slowly working but how does resisting that face of this? So, from our meeting our discussion that Putin's version of fascism is not specifically about Russian ethnic Russians dominating the world, German fascism, Aryans dominating. It's about traditionalist ethno-nationalists dominating each of their countries with a strong, powerful, masculine leader. So it could be a woman, I suppose, if we see in France's elections, but it's about a kind of it's about protecting supposedly traditional values against democracy, decadence, etc. So what democracies must do is that they must show that they're not corrupt, decadent, and weak. That's what Putin believes. That's what Putin fosters. And I don't want to say what is the singular agent here. The United States is long and anti-democratic forces of this sort that allies with. But democracies have to show that they are strong. And democracies can show they are strong. Ukraine showed that it was strong. I remember my grandmother in her book, I forgot the 1958 book, talks about how she's with my father in New York City, just come from Berlin or Germany, and my father is looking at these soldiers marching down Broadway, it was 1941, chewing gum and slapping each other's backs. And my father says they're never going to beat the Nazis because he'd seen the Nazi army march down in Berlin straight forward. And my grandmother said, no, that's exactly why they will beat the Nazis. And that's what Ukraine is showing. Ukraine is showing that democracies have strength, that democracies have value, democracies have strength when they stand up for their values, when they prove accountability. And what Putin thinks, rightfully so, is that democracies have proven themselves to be hypocritical and evil. Look, our democracies have always been functional. So the best thing we can do is we can show that our democracies stand up for the values that they represent, freedom and equality. Do you think that the events of the past few years in the United States has weakened the brand of democracy? So I'll go there and say this weekend that the election cause internal strife and attack its own power. democracies are weak and don't stand up for their values. If we can hold accountable the figures who led us into wars that caused terrible devastations, if we can't hold accountable business leaders who destroyed our economy, and if we can't hold accountable a president who tried to steal the election and destroy American democracy, together with the numerous senators and congressmen who helped him, then in what sense are we a democracy? We don't have the rule of law. And so, in what sense do we have free and fair elections? The threat to autocracies is free and fair elections. Putin can look at the United States and he can direct the world's gaze to the United States and show and say, see, look at what they're doing. They've non-existent voter fraud, yet they're fighting it with a electoral police, with numerous legislation essentially to restrict voting and to potentially steal another election. So democracies do seem openly hypocritical and weak. And that is obviously, that is what Russia wants. Russia's not going to dominate the world. Russia is not a world power. But Russia can help destroy democracy worldwide, thereby preserve its own autocratic regime at home.
One of the chapters in your book deals with the sexual anxiety that is often used in fascism. And I wonder what you think when you look at the number of laws that are now making their way through state legislatures, either restricting women's control of their bodies or LGBTQA rights in the United States.
Right. So we should always remember, we citizens of a democracy, that the principal values of democracy are freedom and equality. And among the freedoms that citizens of a democracy enjoy are the freedoms the freedoms to identify how they want, to have the partners to have the adult partners they want. And this freedom is under attack. Now, this kind of attack on LGBT citizens is very Eastern European in character. It comes in the wake of an attack on so-called critical race theory, but the attack is really not on critical race theory. It's an attack on the teaching of our history, teaching of our anti-democratic racist history. And now we have an attack on LGBT rights, and this is extremely. This puts us into the worldwide autocratic context. If you look at autocrats and would-be autocrats all over the world, from Russia's gay propaganda law in 2013 that prohibits teaching minors about non-standard lifestyles, non-traditional lifestyles, that was passed in 2013, and had a terrible effect on the LGBT community in Russia. If we look at Viktor Orban's Hungary, the recent election was dominated by attacks on LGBT. We look at Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, and he won election with attacks on LGBT. We see the American right now embracing this worldwide far-right autocratic attack on freedom. And so this is just putting us in line with the rest of the fascist right worldwide.
What is it about this that you think historically has stuck and even today makes it something that people can campaign on?
In the United States, the base for this far-right politics includes white nationalists. But if you want to include some people who aren't white, we go back first to like transgender Americans, Chinese Americans, and together 100 people, because, everybody's like, I'm not that, and so maybe I can join the movement of why now. So this traditionalist propaganda, and then even though this, in the United States, the audience here includes white nationalists, very to return to There's no fairness anymore. It's just wrong. And you're not ready if you can't stand up to this because they're going after your badge. It's that level of fear and paranoia that has seeped into it. I don't even think seeped into is the right word anymore. And it's permeated much of American politics. And so it's a very extreme time when these sorts of almost conspiracy theories have in fact become
Jason Stanley, professor of philosophy at the University of
Love that you're saying this because I was going to read you like the very last thing I was probably going to say to you, which is I don't know if it was fortitude or unconscious, but to see someone stay true to who they are and not try to bend themselves to what we thought won't work. Because from the outside, I look at you getting a Parks and Rec at 39, I'm thinking, God bless this guy for not trying to do what everyone else did. In the time arose where his unique set of everything is celebrated. That ain't easy.
No, it takes stubbornness. I mean, depending on who you talk to, which my landlord is, it takes stupidity or less. But stubbornness and tenacity. I found out you could get paid to be in plays in Chicago. So that was my great life solved. And I went to Chicago and set about doing that. And I also got paid to build scenery for some companies, and I was a fight choreographer. And I met Amy because one of my best friends lived in a house with Matt Besser, one of our Citizens Brigade guys. So we met, and it was pretty weird.
Hi.
Like,
Yes, buddy.
Mommy made a big mess.
She made a big mess?
With salmon leaf.
With what?
With salmon leaf.
With salmon leaf? Let's go see what she did. Let's go. Uh-oh. Good job telling Daddy what happened.
But I do appreciate, I think if there's anything looking at my track record or whatever, it is that. It's like, it wasn't through wisdom or cognizance.
process. It was just through common sense. Like, I knew in my gut that I wasn't going to be slick. I knew that I was never going to have X factor. Like,
Yeah. Well, you ironically do, but yes, I know what you're saying. You would only have X Factor as you.
right, but I didn't realize that that was the case. I instead equated it with, like, what other successful people are doing. That must be X factor.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing and not succeeding is
Yeah.
but I can't think of anything else to do, so I'm going to keep talking slow and growing whiskers somewhere out there. Someday.
One day they'll have a need.
For a slight talking mustache.
You know what it is? The story can't remember like it's 22 pages. It should be 34, so you have to get the actors that can make one of these 2-minute scenes like 70. And that would be ideal.
But was Parks written like that? Or
They wrote it for
they tailored?
No, it's one of those things where pretty quickly with the cast, it's interesting. They cast Rashida and Aziz and Amy before they had anything.
I remember this. This is when I was kind of around her a lot. And when I heard it's like, oh, some folks from the office, she's going to do a show with them. It's me, but we're not even sure what the show's going to be. It was because in theory, it was a spin-off, and it wasn't,
And so Mike Sherry was creating the show. They met somebody in Burbank. It was a woman, I believe, who worked in the government. She may have worked for the Parks Department, who was a libertarian who wanted to bring down the government. So that was the story. Honestly, so maybe lost the show. And I think it was a little crazy. I initially read for another part, and then they decided that didn't work. They tried to put me on Ron. Ron was, I think, supposed to be older. But somehow, when I brought that 62-year-old flow, they were like, oh, this guy's way older than these old guys. Like, they didn't want to believe it. NBC spent months where they were like, oh, I don't know if like something's not right. And they auditioned everybody else and their brother. And then finally we're like, well, we can't find anybody better, so I guess you can cast him. But so then once they put us in on the roles, and they great comedy writers, that's their brilliant. So it's awful. They look at Dax and they're like, okay, maybe a little too handsome for some. Somebody tries to juggle in the wrong circumstance.
I did get to be on that show once, and I pretty much played that with some guy who had won like a bunch of Great Lakes areas. I was like,
You
I
did?
can't win.
Oh, Parks?
Yeah, I was like,
And on The Good Place, you were
the grossest guy. Yeah, it's pretty clear, I'm sure. He's a man, which is fine. It's just nice to be thought of. Exactly.
This is a very bizarre physics floor in Gran Turismo 7. And today,
Now, Ukrainians are not only holding off Russian forces on the ground, but also online. Government officials here and citizen-lighted army warfares are transforming the digital landscape, adapting everyday technology into times to follow them. News Prize winning investigative journalist Vera Gruen joins Hari Srinivasan to discuss this country's virtual success and strategy. Michelle Blackman. Thanks for joining us. This seems unlike any other. The amount of information the rest of us have access to because of digital technology. And you've been pointing out
what's happening on the ground there, taking advantage of this, how it's becoming almost a battleground in itself.
That's right. And Ukrainian officials, I've spoken to a range of them. I've spoken to national digital officials, to local digital officials. Zelensky's cabinet really, when he was elected, decided to make this a priority. And they, from the start of this war, have decided that the digital battlefield is a real front line. It's not just an information war. It's not just people on Twitter. It's real. It's just as real as what people on military hardware. People have taken advantage of it, and in a range of ways, both to actually use this technology to keep people safe, and also to have it be a line out to the world, and for them, almost as importantly, a line to Russia itself, to ordinary Russians who are pretty much blocked off from a lot of information. disinformation. So they have taken every single tool, every single thing that we usually kind of consider everyday tech that we use. They've tried to adapt it for wartime, which is pretty remarkable to see. I mean, obviously it remains to be seen, but they see it as a way where they're evenly matched against Russia, or even superior. Which obviously, especially at the beginning, with Russian, hardware just pouring across the border and circling cities, that wasn't the case. But they know that when it comes to both public perception and global perception, the pressure campaigns that we have seen, pretty effective in going extra steps to isolate Russia economically, going even beyond the sanctions. All of these different